We'll sit down and we'll have about 20 minutes, 15 minutes to chat a little bit more about their work and the Sustainable Development Goals and what drives them in their career and so on. So Radhika talked for a little bit about how she got into this area of research and investment and impact investment, as you'd like to call it. But we haven't heard quite from Alice and Emily, what ultimately led you to do this? And so I'd love to hear that from you. Alice, you want to start?
How about Emily? She's so close to you. So.
A diversion tactic. So just so that Alice can have a little think about it, right? Emily, are you ready for this question?
Yeah. I was a physics undergrad, and for the physicists in the room, I think it's tricky to feel that your work is having an impact, I think, sometimes when you're thinking on really, really small scales. So I was looking for sort of an avenue I could go into with my graduate and hopefully career that would make me feel like I was having more of an impact on a day-to-day basis. So it was sort of seeking out, and physics is a great background for that, into the atmospheric science program, and then discovering my love of data analysis and data science, which has, I think, brought me where I am now.
What do you love about it?
So my first research project was looking at ozone hole variability in the stratosphere, and I remember the first time that I got a satellite data set and I plotted just what was there, and I got the correct annual cycle in ozone, and that was just a moment for me. I was like, oh my goodness, you can take data and you can see what you expect to see in it with just writing a few lines of code, and that's just sort of where it started.
Yeah. Do you drive your family crazy with your love for data?
Yeah.
How many of you do as well? Yeah. What about you, Alice?
I joined Ford mainly first because I need to unite with my husband. I used to work outside in different states. One is in Arkansas, then later in Ohio. But then I was like, okay, I want to go to big threes if I move to Michigan. So I joined Ford, and I immediately get excited about sustainability because the first thing I joined is about leveraging on-road data and identify if we have opportunity to claim credits from government. So when I first do my first job and the first project, I kind of use big data, machine learning, and identify some patterns. And then I talked to the domain expert, and they were like, "Oh, we have opportunity to claim credits." And I was like, "Wow, that easy?" So I think it's really inspired me that when I start a project, I really want to see the outcome, how we can impact, for example, help Ford to meet the compliance requirement from government, or in the meantime, tell the engineers, say, hey, maybe you should set up your threshold a little bit lighter because this is how it reflected from on-road customer vehicle. They were like, oh, wow, fantastic. I cannot see it from the lab. I want to learn big data. I want to use the data. So I see the power, and then make me more motivated to work in this area. And of course, most recent years, the electrification, I get super excited about energy services, grid services, public charging experience. You can see how painful customers are, and then you can say, okay, everything I work on will make an impact on people's life. That's very rewarding. Yeah.
That's great to hear. Radhika, I want to go to you, because you work on the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we know that they're not reaching them very quickly. So how confident are you, or positive are you, that in, say, the next 5 years we can really make a dent?
I choose to think, Margot, that we don't have a choice not to be optimistic. Of course, these are very daunting targets, and we are very behind. However, we don't have a choice as a world. So I tell myself we're going to make it happen, and we, each and every one of us, has to do what it takes. But I think there's tremendous role here in data science and digital innovation, especially understanding the trends around what is working, what is not working, and kind of things that we don't even know to look for. If we can bring the power of digital innovation and data science to detect where the biggest bang for the buck, as we say, is, and then go with very kind of specific interventions there, I think we can achieve these goals or at least make tremendous headway in the next few years.
So where do you think that biggest bang for the buck is? Is that a particular SDG goal? Is that a particular area of data science or AI? Where do you see it?
I actually think the biggest bang for the buck, which has been really underlooked, is understanding the biases of our minds, because that is, everyone talks of all the very tangible aspects, but we humans build this technology. We humans are responsible for climate change at some level, and we have biases in our minds towards each other, us in Silicon Valley towards the rest of the world, towards us in the global north towards the global south, gender, ethnicity. If we can better understand these biases and find and use data science in doing that, because data can actually really help us understand that. One example from our own Stanford Silicon Valley world here, there is a venture capital firm here that really believes in investing in diverse entrepreneurs. And they want to tackle, venture capitalists have biases too when they invest. And to tackle the biases, they use data analytics and data science to evaluate not just entrepreneur, but the business plan, rather than most VCs who say, I go by my gut instinct. They use data science, and that actually helps weed out biases. And if we can apply this now globally to achieve the SDGs and tackle the biases, and also get local voices to have agency, again, I think is an area where they don't have a seat at the table. However, solutions, and I'm sorry I keep coming back to Stanford solutions, but those are the ones I know. Solutions like the online decision-making and deliberative polling platforms here at Stanford, they can enable now voices of local communities to be at the table from the remote villages via their phones. And this is what we need, I think.
Yeah, and it's also so important for us at WIT. But what about you, Alice? If we ask you 5 years from now to come back, what do you hope to have achieved in that time? What is your dream for the next 5 years?
I just wish we have a much better infrastructure, especially the DC fast chargings. I wish we can come with more general AI empowered tools that not only just end user, but also business can get more insights from the data instead of asking a data scientist to do it, right? A lot of those new technologies, I wish we can bring more business value. That's what I'm looking for. Definitely first one is infrastructure. Hope we have more DC fast chargers.
I thought you were going to say that Ford will overtake Tesla. No?
I'm not sure if I can say it here.
That looked really cool.
So that's what I was hoping for.
By the way, we just Tesla opened the superchargers with Ford, so we just successfully integrated just a few days ago. So we're good partners now. So
that's exciting. What about you, Emily? 5 years from now, when you're a famous professor somewhere, what do you hope to see in the area of climate change?
Yeah, so I've been sort of struck by what Radhika's been saying, and so I talked a little bit about high resolution modeling and downscaling our understanding of the climate to more regional scales. And so that's a great way of, I think, decreasing uncertainty in regional climate impacts. But I think I would really love to be seeing much more engagement with local communities, making sure that if we're providing information to a community, they're the ones that are benefiting from it and are able to use it, and it's feeding back into the science of the communities who are benefiting. As well as as I said, there's just so much more data, so more equitable access to the data as well.
I think we need to have you work on the digital transformation lab, Radhika, and make that connection. That's great. One of the things that really strikes me about all of your work, and in fact that's a theme for today, is that you're all very multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary people. So you're working with teams of engineers, scientists, decision makers, economists probably. I mean, everyone is represented. And that's often the role that we play as data scientists, is that I always think of myself as the spider in the web, but maybe everyone does. But we're working with all these different people around us, and we need to know a little bit about what they're doing as well. And that's not easy. right? That takes a little bit of time. And so I wanted to ask you, how in your career have you grown into this role of being this spider in the web as data scientist, working with all these other people from these other disciplines together on a large interdisciplinary project? Was that easy? Was that hard? How did you deal with it? Alice, you want to start with that?
Yeah, when I first joined Ford, the only thing I know about a car is how good it looks, right? Just like if exterior looked beautiful, I wanted, but I couldn't tell if the performance was going on inside of the vehicle. But then I realized my egoism as data scientist doesn't work because you don't know how the system actually functions, then whatever model you build won't work. So have to work together with engineers and respect their years of knowledge. And to be honest, they're the nicest colleagues and the community who share like selflessly to waste all the information you may need. So sometimes I keep saying like, just using the data itself, I cannot do a good job. I have to know how physically it works. So we kind of embed ourselves with whoever the experts. So that's why I want to recognize all the engineers and domain experts. We have to sit next to them. And they're so patient to help data scientists to understand what's the real hidden pattern inside of data. Sometimes machine learning may not be able to catch it, right? So yeah, that's why like my colleagues and myself, we always respect the knowledge they have, and then from the engineer side, and then we collaborate together. Yeah.
Do you sometimes feel completely lost?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know, like when they start with the terminologies, we were like, what is going on? Then they took us to the basically the lab. So we see how it really works. So at least I can talk a little bit of the parts of the vehicle. That's, I think, another benefit from it. Yeah.
I think it's common, right, for a lot of people in this field to often feel a bit like an imposter because you're not on top of the field completely. You cannot be on top of every single aspect of it. What has it been like for you, Emily? You also changed from sort of physics to data science, and then you got into climate change. How did you deal with that?
Yeah, it's definitely been tricky. It's a lot of it, as Alice said, is making sure that you are listening to the experts around you and feeding back and sort of checking your ego that like it's okay to not know something. Actually, you are working with a whole bunch of experts, so it's bringing in your knowledge where you can. And I think it was good to bring up like imposter syndrome because I think as women, I think we're especially susceptible for it. So it's also knowing that like, when you hear something and you're like, I don't know if that's quite right, it's like maybe backing yourself in your own expertise and knowledge to sort of bring something to the table.
Did you find it hard in the beginning to ask questions?
Yes, and one thing I really valued learning from my previous advisor was knowing when to say I don't know to a problem, and being okay with that being a response, and then going back and learning that thing you didn't know.
What about you, Radhika?
Yeah, I think for me it was being organically thrown into community building when we started a group here in memory of late Professor Raju Motwani to continue a spirit of helping everyone. And before that, I was just in the tech world. And when I got thrown in there, we met many different people when we started this group. We started organic mentoring, and that's when we realized that it is so much fun and so much richer to be around people from different disciplines, different interests. And for me, just the intellectual curiosity got me really into more and more intersectional things. But then more recently, the realization that's the only way. The SDGs, they really recognize you cannot think of poverty without understanding health and gender, or without climate change. And that they really bring that recognition. And now for me, anything I do, I just like to think intersectional, but be surrounded by intersectional people, and all of us challenging each other and learning. And I think especially young people.
Right.
They really
I was hoping you would use the word learning, because I think that's what always drives me. You can learn something every day by being surrounded by experts who know a lot more than you do, right? But it's sometimes a bit daunting. Must have been for you too.
For me too, and daunting. And on the flip side, sometimes not knowing when to ask the question, but I've also experienced, inspired by Alan's talk, it brought back memories of being in boardrooms and being a woman and often being told, oh, good point, wait, we'll get to you later, right? So also challenging and demanding that seat at the table and getting your voice there is also as important. And that is part of the learning journey as well, I would say, especially for us women.
Yeah. Well, to finish up this little lovely panel discussion, I'm sure there are people in the audience who are interested in going into sustainability. How many of you are interested in sustainability? Raise your hand. No, a fair number. What advice would you have for them? What, if they're students, how can they get involved? What should they be thinking about as they're building their career? Maybe just advice from your own experiences, Emily.
Yeah, I think one of the sort of more meta things that I've really found is making sure that you don't become too cynical, I think, and make sure that you're still following the sort of thing that makes you happy day to day, which can be, quite difficult. But yeah, I think especially in data science, I think there can be a lot of room for cynicism, and I think trying to make sure that you're sort of staying grounded in the domain can help.
Great. Alice?
Definitely, do a good job at school, right? You should be a great coder. You know how to transform the business questions into analytical problem formulations. And second, I feel like should stay proactive and innovative. Keep close to connect to what has been going on from the industry. You want to get yourself up to speed, right? And if you hear you saw new methodologies coming in, you want to quickly catch up and say, will it be useful for my work? And of course, be a sponge, right? You want to get all the information as much as possible. I'm afraid all the information are exploding, so we want to collect those information as much as possible. And of course, be curious and nice, right? You want to be nice to your colleagues who have the knowledge which you may don't have. Then you want to collaborate and collect those information so you can build a much better model, because it shouldn't be a black box. It should be something explainable to the downstream users as well as business. Yeah.
Radhika, your piece of advice.
Yeah. Start doing something now, little changes, think about it very consciously, think of sustainability holistically. It's not just climate change, it's inclusion, it's everything, but it's conserving our planet and humanity and all the species. And don't be afraid, jump in and start doing things, challenge yourself, be part of the change.
I like it. We'll end with that. Thank you so much for being here this morning and for joining me for this little panel. Right?